And good morning and welcome to Mirador Television, broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, East Sussex. One of the great joys of coming into this studio in the hotel is that the lovely staff chat to us. We're just chatting to Jane, who is, the head receptionist, I guess, but she looks after the place. And her comments were the big problem with what's happened in Poland, which is there's been a missile strike from Russia, who are now denying that it's them, is that mistakes are made and that's how wars start. And she is so right. She is dead on the button. So the newspapers this morning, the newspaper headlines are all about a missile strike in Poland, which the Russians say isn't their fault. Ukraine, I guess, are not going to admit it if it's their fault. And if it's some third party just playing mischief, then indeed the mischief is in danger zone. So that's where we stand this morning. Good morning. It's 8:31, 8:32 perhaps. It's 8:32, yes indeed. It is in Lewes. And we are talking to the world. And we're happy to do so. And sitting there, because I can't actually see him at the moment, but sitting there is a Mad Max, actually, who prefers to be called Mighty Max. You're like Mad Jack Fuller. He was a man of considerable talent, and he actually was a big donor to. For instance, he paid for the first Eastbourne lifeboat and the life tower, watchtower. Yeah, he actually contributed to the work that Daly was doing on the miner's lamp, which is designed to stop explosions in mines, and into Faraday's cage. Faraday's cage being the first early electronic experiments, which led to television. So he was a great donor to good causes, but he was known as Mad Jack because he drank himself to a 22-stone death, and he also built lots of follies. In other words, towers that had apparently no obvious meaning. So he was a very, very good man, but he was known as Mad Jack. So we sometimes call you Mad Max. It's because we have a high regard for your talents and how you think. But we'll call you Mighty Max this morning. How's that?
Sounds great.
He's happy enough with it. Okay. So what's the agenda, Max? Do you want me to go to the headlines straight away?
Yeah, go straight to the headlines. We've got a couple of big stories this morning.
Yes, indeed. Well,
the big one that I noticed isn't in any of the headlines. Did you see Trump's speech?
No, not necessarily.
He's running for president of 2024.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is he? Trump is
thrown
his hat in the ring.
Yes.
I called that yesterday.
So did I. Of course
his ego is too big for him to back down. But have the Republican Party endorsed him?
Well, yeah, there is really no Republican Party without him. He's got the majority of the support.
So there we go. He's going to be the Republican candidate. I can't wait to see what Melissa says on Friday.
Well, obviously they have to do the debates where the party members nominate who's going to be the president. So it's not 100% confirmed yet, but it's 99% confirmed that he's going to be running.
He'll be it. Yeah. He's the favourite son, isn't he?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if Ron DeSantis does actually decide to run against Trump. I highly doubt it, though.
Yeah.
Because he will lose popularity for going against Trump.
Yeah, and he will be looking at his future. He can see life after Trump. How old is this young pretender?
Oh, Ron DeSantis. I think he's same age as Rishi Sunak. So I think he's 45.
Yeah, he's quite young.
Between 45 and 50.
Plenty of time left. I don't know whether it still pertains, but obviously when I lived in North America, I followed the conventions and the elections very carefully. And I remember there was a gentleman called Julian Bond that was nominated for vice president. And after he was accepted, they suddenly had to back down because he wasn't 40. And at that time, there was a rule that you could not stand for vice president or president until you were over 40. I don't know whether that's still in
No,
the,
it's
in
not.
the statute books.
It's 55 now.
It's 55 now.
No, not 55. Sorry. 35.
35, right. Okay, so you have to be over 35 now.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, it'll be very interesting to see what unfolds over the next 18 months. It's 18 months they've got left, isn't it, approximately?
Way more. For the American ones, yes. For us, I think we've got about a year.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the world is going to be a very interesting place as if it isn't at the moment. Let's go back then to the news of the day and the newspaper headlines, and that is missiles hit Poland and mold death shames the UK. So the Times, Russians blamed for a fatal strike on Poland. And basically the story is that explosions in Poland killed 2 people. The Times reports on the theory that Russia could be behind the fatal missile strike near Poland's border with Ukraine. The US and other international powers said they were investigating, but are yet to apportion blame, while Ukraine has dismissed the possibility the strike could have been caused by one of its air defense missiles. So Ukraine are denying that it's them. Russia is denying that it's them. It is a strike. As I understand, it's a missile strike.
It was
not an accident.
Well, no, it probably isn't. But it was about 2 miles away from the border of Ukraine. So very, very close to the edge. So it's plausible that there might have been some sort of accident, but again, highly doubted.
Yes. Well, I mean, it doesn't take them too long. Forensic engineers, they're called. I knew one who actually had a theory about some bombings in the United States because they pointed out that actually looking at the way the debris was sprayed across the area and so on, that the source of it couldn't be the source that the government claimed for a while. So I'm sure that forensic engineers will take a look at it and they will soon be able to determine where this rocket came from. Not least of which is these rockets don't dissolve totally. There's always a little carcass shell on it. And each nation has always got such ego that what they do is they paint their colors on it. This belongs to us. And they actually say, oh, no. It's not ours. And there it is with their flag painted on it. Mind you, I suppose it is easy to
paint a different flag.
Yeah. To fake the flag. Fake the flag. There's another phrase for it. Fake the flag. Putin's war spills into Poland. The same story. And
I think they're all pretty similar.
They are. But there's one little thing there that is in the eye. It's just a little bottom of the page headline. It says that Truss cancelled meetings if she couldn't put them on Instagram. Now, I have to be very careful about fake news, but it's interesting, isn't it, that should come out in
Which
in
paper is this?
This is in the eye at the bottom. If you look at
I
the
see
bottom.
that. That's okay.
Right. The Daily Telegraph also goes with the Russian missile strike in Poland, and it is there is a sub-headline there that is interesting, and one that I think I know your tastes, Max. 1/5 of pupils are missing from classrooms since the pandemic. Now, you're very interested in education and what's done and what isn't done. What's your reaction to that?
That is, it's sad, but it's true. I saw it happen. I was in a class of, well, I'll use my college as a small example. My class in 2020 to 2021 had, I think, 7 people in it, but only 3 showed up. My class from 2021 to 2022, which is the one I just left, was supposed to have about 15 students, and it's anyway usually about 6, maybe 8.
Yeah. The rest just didn't bother.
Yeah, but
I mean, did they go permanently missing, or they?
Yeah, some of them.
Right.
Some of them, but most of them just came in. Some of them came in once a month, but it is difficult because like you're trying to get them in, but we have mental health issues, so we can't come in.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is a fact, but some people have used that as an excuse.
Yeah.
No.
I can well imagine.
I'm sure you would have done the same if you were younger. If you could pretend to be sick to get a day off school, you did. I did the same, not to the extent of having mental health issues.
Once in a while to get the day off school, but I mean that was very rare. I mean, one of the big differences, I think, because I haven't been in school recently, not for quite a long time, but the discipline in school when I was at school is quite different to the discipline today. I mean, you actually still got whacked with actually, it wasn't a cane in our school's case. It was the sole of a running shoe. And believe me, the headmaster would actually put 3 soles together and tie it together with a belt. So not only did it hurt like hell, but it made one hell of a noise as it cracked against your backside. 6 of those besties, you didn't want them again very often. So
now everything's too soft. Yes. That seems a little bit extreme, and maybe we shouldn't go that far again. But it's a lot of teachers. I noticed this in secondary school as well. A lot of teachers are just pushovers.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And you can get away with anything.
Yeah. And I don't think that bodes for people, as you say. You were at a secondary educational college preparing for life outside. There are 15 people that signed up for it. 6 showed up. Where are the other 8 or 9? Where do they think what's going to happen to them when they leave college? Who's going to look after them?
No one my age thinks in the long term. That's the issue. So nobody my age thinks in the long term. That's the issue. So it's not that they're just not thinking about their future, and they don't think of it in the way of what's going to happen to me 10 years down the line if I don't even get a secondary education.
Right. And why is that thinking not? I mean, at one time, that's all that you thought about when you left school. Is what is my career? Life. Where am I going to get a job, and so on?
No one plans for life. Not many people my age. I'm the only one. When I would say I have 3 different paths in life that I'm happy to go down. One being media, the other being a car-related industry, and possibly trucking, like being a truck driver. I have always had those for the majority of my life. I've always had at least 3 options that are clear paths I can see myself going down in life. But no one else, no one even has one. Not many.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we have tried to handle students here for work experience, and you're really the only one success. We've had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4. We've had about 6 students, all of whom had a very good background in terms of how to handle a camera, how to do editing, how to do the technical side of the business. But once they actually hit the reality of what television was all about, it's just folded and actually backed off.
The one thing I still struggle and I'm still trying to get used to is college, secondary school and college, all school really. It's so laid back to the point where, I missed my assignment. Oh, well, I'll send it to you next week or whatever. Something like that. But when I'm doing this television, if I miss something, that's a huge deal.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, I think one of the things that you realised when you came here, that a deadline is a deadline. And
Yeah,
you've
that's
got
what
to
I'm
work to
talking
that
about.
deadline. There's nobody there going to pat you on the head and say, "Oh, we'll turn it in next week." Can't do that, otherwise you get great big black holes. And it is known in the industry as a black hole. Dead air is the other thing. Everybody's terrified of dead air. That is when nothing happens. But anyway, let's go on. I just noticed that in the Daily Telegraph while looking at the story about the explosion in Poland. Is one of the key issues is that Zelensky has said it's a deadly attack on a NATO member, that if that actually drags NATO into,
if that is true, if it's a NATO member that was killed, that is a very, very, very big deal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's going to put a whole new perspective on this war. And I'm sorry, I hate to be the doomsayer, but I've said that Putin is really, he's not of anybody's comprehension in the West. You have to be almost a Russophile, if that's the word, to understand. Well, it's the same as Anglophile, but a Russophile. Francophile.
I don't know any of these now.
Metro. Putin's war escalates. Russian missiles hit Poland. Same story.
Yeah, they're all there.
Mirror. The tyrant's war on Ukraine. Russian bombs hit Poland. NATO to hold crisis talks as Putin's stray missiles killed 2 in a village. The Guardian. The Guardian has gone along with all this. Russian barrage strikes Ukraine amid claims missiles hit Poland. There is a picture then underneath that headline, and it says a defining moment. The boy killed by mold in a family flat. And that is the first hint of a domestic story this morning of any importance, is that a young boy was living in a housing trust flat that was so badly affected with mold and that the housing trust failed to do anything about it. And he was taken to hospital with some sort of disease, and he died. And the paper says it's a defining moment for the UK's housing sector. The Express headlines that story. Tragic death of the boy from mold shames Britain. And essentially, the Express, which is not prone to really dramatic headlines, is the tragic death of the boy from mold shames Britain. The paper reports the 2...
Why does it shame Britain? This can happen anywhere.
Well, it could, but we like to, particularly the Liberal band, that talk about how wonderful the NHS is, uncritically, don't like any sort of criticism of the country.
The NHS is the most brilliant organisation ever, and you can't question it.
NHS?
The NHS is the most brilliant organisation. You can't question it.
I totally differ with you, and I refuse to beat the drum for it at the beginning of lockdown.
That's being sarcastic.
Oh, right.
Okay. Why would you not? Okay, all right.
No, I'm going to have to teach you how to really drip with sarcasm.
No, being overly sarcastic is just not fun.
No. You got to make your point in this world. Got to make your point. Anyway, he was killed by a respiratory condition caused by spores in his family's one-bedroom housing association flat. The Financial Times: Sunak urges bosses to curb their pay and look after staff. This is wonderful stuff. This is what really, business and government should be talking about. And this is diddly squat. This is absolute nonsense. Sunak shows that he is not terribly worldly, and the corporate sector will be rubbing their hands with glee that he would say something like that they can totally ignore. Yes, of course, it would be great if bosses would curb their pay and look after their staff. But that's been an age-old issue and that's why we have trade unions to try and correct any sort of imbalance. And it's not happening. And just because Sunak has asked for it, it's not likely to happen because of him either. Right, butchers tempt families with beef for Christmas as bird flu kills off turkeys. Oh yeah, there's going to be a shortage of turkeys at Christmas.
Is that?
You're going to
it is the bird flu that causing the shortage.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But actually, strangely enough, I know a large number of people who prefer a nice roast baron of beef at Christmas to turkeys. And of course, in Dickens' time, turkeys were still something of the imagination in the Americas. And the bird that was on the table in the 1800s was a goose. The goose was a very favorite bird. And that came from medieval times. The goose was the favorite bird in medieval times, except the Lord of the Manor owned so many deer that venison also topped the bill of fare. There we are. The FT also says, as the global population grows and welcomes the 8 billionth baby.
Yeah. The population is now 8 billion.
Right. And baby Damien, who is chosen to represent the Dominican Republic's contribution towards the worldwide milestone. I think it's a milestone we don't want. Population is out of control, just the same as immigration.
Yes, but the second you start controlling the population in that terms of controlling how many people can give birth, then it gets into a very sticky situation.
Yes, it does.
I don't think it's not an ideal situation, but I don't think we should or can stop it.
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. But the fact is, they use the word welcomes the 8 billionth baby. I don't think we should be welcoming him. I think we should be saying let's see if we can keep it under 8 billion. But there we are. We celebrate strange things.
But then again, I say this so often, but it's just such an important point. Is this country, we have a declining birth rate, but a rising population.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, I can't quote you a chapter and verse, the recent figures, but it does show a rise in immigrants as opposed to natural born. But actually, I mean, my own grandsons are in their late 20s now. And although they're both married or have partners, is they haven't produced any children. I'm not a great grandfather, even though I'm in the age range where I could be. And it does seem as if not only are we being overwhelmed by people coming into the country, but our own flock aren't doing the job. How many children have you got, Max?
None yet.
In talking things over with your girlfriend, though, because I know you're desperately in love, if you talk about getting married, have you talked about how many children you would like or she would like?
We kind of disagree on that a little bit, which is a bit of a issue.
Does she want any?
Not really.
Right. You see, it's not only overwhelming numbers coming in from abroad, but I think that you're probably typical of whereas once in Victorian England, the families were huge. I had great aunts and great uncles and grandparents and so on coming in my ears.
You know how many siblings I have? I'm one of 10, which is insane. My mum only had 3 kids, just to be clear. But 10, that's a lot. That's very unusual.
Yes, it is. It is. And I think that God bless your father. He tried very hard to make up the shortfall, but
no, he didn't. No, we won't talk about that, but no.
No, we won't get into the personal things. And he's here, ready to take his place eventually. Go and get a nice cup of coffee.
A nice cup of coffee? No, coffee's not nice. It's tea that's nice.
Tea, right.
I'm going to make you a nice. My mother was going to make you a nice cup of tea.
Yes. It's that lovely thing in Beyond the Fringe. Beyond the Fringe was a satirical review of the 1960s or 1970s. And there is one particular skit which goes something like this. I was in the garden planting carrots for our night fighters at the time when my wife said to me, war has broken out. Never mind, I said, let's go inside and have a nice cup of tea. And that was the answer in Britain to absolutely everything. Is have a nice cup of tea. And if you have a nice cup of tea, it'll all sort itself out.
Yeah, I can always remember that when we're feeling down all the rest of it. Never mind, I'll make you a nice cup of tea.
Right, now here's a different story, and here's one I want your take on, Max, because it's the Daily Mail. And apart from the fact that it's got a tongue-in-cheek thing, is that one of their writers, Francis Matt Hancock, the main is universities are told to decolonize maths and computing, and the watchdog says this is the official advice to universities is start teaching about white supremacy. What's your take on that?
University is a waste of time. Don't go. Don't waste your money. Second of all, we've been seeing this for quite a while now. We've been seeing this for probably a year and a half now, but this is just making it into the mainstream. So let me read this once again. Universities are told to decolonize maths and computing because you know what the woke people my age are like. Everything is racist. Everything is racist. Literally everything. No, just
about everything is the woke generation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, you've got quite a story to tell a little later, haven't you? Because you bumped into them the other day and put a flea in their ear.
What's that?
The woke lot down the town.
Oh boy, that my day out of Brighton is really a story and a half.
Yes,
we'll talk about that in a minute because I want to hear about that as well. I've only heard part
Well,
of
actually,
the
it's
story.
very, very appropriate because the person my guest today is a county councillor, right? And the county council won't stop investing in fossil fuels, right? So I know a great deal about
fossil fuels
and BP. Okay.
Yeah. Now, what time that's coming along? Your guest is
10
coming in about 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's quite. What happens is they were all chained up, Max, right? And at Barclays in Watford. And I've been having a big trouble with my Barclays card, and I said they owed the money over what's it, so forth and so on. So they chained up and they chained to the door, and they said, "I'll let you in if you discharge your Barclays account. I'll take out all your money from Barclays." And I said, "Why is that?" Because we're trying to do fossil fuels. I said, well, what are you
Hang on, Stuart, can we go over this properly when you have your own camera so people can hear you?
Yeah.
We'll go over this.
We'll carry on with the mess while you get your nice cup of tea.
It won't be not so nice cup of coffee.
All right, on you go. We'll see you in a few minutes.
So,
the university is told to decolonize maths and computing, and I've asked you to give us your view on that.
Who told them?
So I
Who
think
told them that?
The
Stuart.
watchdog, the teaching watchdog. Yeah.
Okay.
Question,
Yes. And watchdogs say teach about white supremacy. So, as you know, the wokes my age complain about everything, and everything is racist. It's I can't even get into it without sounding incredibly racist by using their point of view. So we'll talk about the story. I'll go to the page 6, and we'll talk about this a little bit later.
All right.
To go more
let
in
me
depth.
ask you though, because this is the latest in what seems to me to be marginalising universities, getting out of touch totally with what's happening in the country, much like the government. I saw a note a little while ago about the fact that now they're going to encourage. I think in fact, I think it was Sunak said he was going to encourage more people to go to practical colleges rather than universities.
Yeah, every Conservative Prime Minister has said that when they get elected. So We'll
And
take
do they
that
do
with a
it?
pinch
No.
of salt. No.
No. Right.
Oh, we'll bring back grammar schools as well. No, they won't.
No. Right, now we're going to go off. We're going to go to the funny money, the sun and so on. Shall we go down to the park for a minute and catch our breath and give our steward there time to get to grips with arriving on site?
Now, and welcome back. So, should we go to the last two papers?
No, we have decided is no.
What are the last
Only
two?
because I thought that the last two are worth a giggle or two between us. So I thought, rather with the serious stuff, let's just take a look and see if there's anything local that is worthwhile looking at. And indeed there is, because there is a weather warning out for hours of torrential rain and 50-mile-per-hour winds forecast. And indeed, I hit those when I got onto the bus this morning. Did you?
No, not at all.
No, they were really beginning to gust quite strongly. This when they put out when the Met Office put out a weather warning like this, it just shows how serious they are about weather. And of course, this part of the world has suffered in the past very badly from storms roaring in from the Channel. In fact, Stuart would have been here. I wasn't. I think it was in the 1980s when half the forests along this coast were ripped out. Trees were ripped out by the roots and devastated. Is that right?
1987.
87.
When that favourite forecaster said there's not going to be a typhoon here, and half the bloody trees in London were bloody burning out.
Right.
And also, yesterday morning on the radio, there was an item which said the National Weather Forecast Centre said this winter is going to be the most coldest in decades.
Right.
Okay,
well, we'll go through that once we've got you sat down so people hear you.
Yeah.
All right. So
you. Stuart there backing up that story is. It was said a little earlier that we're going to go through one of the worst winters that we have for a long time. And this often happens when we have an exceptional summer. We have a very, very bad winter. And it looks as if that cycle is going to come to pass.
Well, I mean, if we're having blackouts as well, people really can't put their heating on. So what? Okay.
Well, I mean, once again, you see, this is where the two of you get into energy matters at some stage. Is that what your theme has been is that because of mismanagement, the cost of heating is going to go up and up and up. And I know that when Stuart was sitting with me the other day, he's appalled at what the prediction now is. I think it's over £2,000 a year for a family to heat the average house.
Actually, McKeith, you're quite wrong about that. If you go back to after the trust mess up, go back to the status quo ante, and the bill was likely to go up in October.
All right. So
well, it was going to go up to 3,000.
Yeah, either come and sit down or tell it later.
All right, tell it later.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Swiss trains so I can sort everything out.
Right. Okay.
All right.
All right. The
This is a
director
five.
is giving us hell because we're getting too enthusiastic about our ideas and thoughts about energy. And it is energy morning, so we'll let him take over for a little while, and then we shall come back with a bang.
Yeah, just
Right.
one last thing. Did you hear this morning that Trump said he's going to run?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
We
I
did.
watched
Now,
We've
now.
covered that.
Okay, we'll talk about this in a minute.
No, let me tell you about it now.
All right,
Well,
we're going.
sit down and let them see.
All
you.
right, so we're
Sorry.
going to the
Yeah.
clip switch trains.
Right,
Sorry
well,
about this.
There's been loads of
Okay, so we are back. We're trying to figure out some technical issues. We're trying to add a third camera for our lovely guest that's coming on later. But we are having some issues, so we're going to go to another clip briefly. Could you tell me about Tall Tales of Flying before we go into it?
Oh, can I tell you about the tall tales of flying? How on earth my wife ever married me, I have no idea, because when I was courting her, I offered to take her up in a Cessna and fly around the skies of British Columbia. And we got onto the runway, and I rammed the throttle in, and we roared down the runway, and suddenly the tower came on and said MLA, MLA, which were the call letters of the aircraft. You are going down the runway the wrong way. So this actually, this is one of my tall tales about how I got into flying and getting 400 hours as a pilot on a light aircraft, and some of the things that happened in between.
All right, here we go.
I'm a very accomplished flyer now, but way back in the 60s, when commercial jets still were being tested on commercial flights, then getting on board an aircraft was something of a trauma. We sat there hoping like hell that the pilot knew what he was doing and that he would get us down at the other end. And of course the pilots didn't know what they were doing, and they did get us down at the other end. But then again, air crashes became front page news, and it seemed always there was a crash just before I was supposed to fly. And so I wasn't the best flyer. Then one morning, somebody at the station, radio station I was working at, said, "Oh, someone's got to go up in a light aircraft and do traffic reports." Ha ha ha, I said, "They're not getting me into that." Guess who they came knocking on the door to? Hayes, you go out, you do the traffic reports. Well, I had no choice. I couldn't say no, I had to do it. So indeed I did. And away I went each morning, getting up at about 4:30, driving out to the airport and getting there about 5 o'clock, marching over to the far side of the airfield and getting into a Cessna 172, taking off, soaring above the city and passing on information about what was happening in the traffic. Wow. Took me 2 or 3 days to get used to the fact that this is what I was going to do twice a day. But then eventually I began to calm down and began to quite enjoy it. I enjoyed it so much, in fact, that I fell asleep one morning. I dozed, and the pilot said, "I think your station is calling you." And I heard the magic words, and now we're going up above the city, above the traffic, to see what was happening on the roads. So I opened my eyes, looked down, and immediately began to give a report. And the report was that there was a big jam of buses near the Oak Street Bridge, which went over the Fraser River. Wow! what a report. And then as we turned the aircraft and flew away, I realized that this was the bus terminal. I had just said that there were traffic jams of buses, and I'd been looking down at where the buses congregated before they set out on their morning routes. Nothing like a great report. The pilot turned to me and he said, "You know, you've got this job licked. It's a bit boring, isn't it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it is really. No, I mean, not much to say other than what's going on in the traffic." I tried to brighten it up a little bit with a little quip here and there, but right, tomorrow morning, he said, "You get in the left-hand seat and I'll teach you to fly." And he did. And I was fortunate to have almost a year and a half of a flying experience. I logged 400 hours on the Cessna. I logged a couple of hours on a twin-engine aircraft and a couple of hours on other aircraft. I was the luckiest man in the world. And he put me into some pretty awful conditions. And we would fly up. I would give a report, and then we would do some what's known touch and goes. In other words, you land, you circle, you land, you circle, just to get some practice in. And we did, and one morning a gust of wind took it, and I thought that the wing was going to be ripped off. Well, he grabbed the stick and managed to get us out of trouble, but it just shows the sort of thing that if you're going to be a professional pilot, that you have to put up with. So confident did we become on flying around together that he would set little tests, and he would say, there are clouds on the North Shore over the mountains. Why don't we go over and see if we can break the wings of this aircraft? Yes, let's do that. And we would deliberately fly into this mucky weather and get churned around and watch the wings, knowing full well that they wouldn't fall off. But daring. And it did turn out to be a lot of fun. I have to say, it turned out to be a lot of fun. A couple of other incidents. I used to take VIPs up in the afternoon and say, okay, here are some pollution issues and so on and so forth. And one afternoon we got my good friend, but also a colleague, Mrs. Grace McCarthy, who was the Deputy Prime Minister at the time. And we got out onto the runway and away we went. And a jet had taken off just before us, and it was a fairly still evening, so you can't see them, but the whirls of air caused by the jet's wings are still there. And sure enough, we got 3 or 4 feet from the ground, and away it went. We damn near lost the cabinet minister, but the Deputy Prime Minister. Once again, he came to the rescue, flipped it over, and we managed to save the day. The other item that I think was worth reporting is that we flew backwards. Have you ever flown backwards? He said. And this young chap was about 21 or 22. He was a nice young fellow. We bought him a helmet and nicknamed him the Red Baron. And he was to die in tragic circumstances in a plane crash later on. But he was a nice young man and very helpful and lots of fun. And so we went, and he said, we need a marker. And the plane travels forward at about 100 miles or so an hour. Actually, it's a little over 72 miles for the takeoff speed. And he said that the wind this morning is particularly strong. So he put the nose of the aircraft into the strong wind, and we watched the bridge below. And although we were keeping airspeed, the plane started to travel backwards. So here we were in reverse, in a plane, in the sky, watching the bridge recede while the plane powered forward at the correct speed and the wind pushed us back. And that's the sort of nonsense that we would get up to. And there are lots of other stories I can tell you about my flying experience, but perhaps this last one will bring something of a smile to your lips. I was trying very hard to impress who later became my wife, my girlfriend at the time, Valerie, and I said, would you like to come flying, dear, and come out with me this afternoon, and we could go and we'll go and do some traffic reports, but we'll also take a look at the Vancouver from the air. How lovely. Yes, she said, that'd be super. Anyway, we got settled into the plane, I taxied out, checked with the tower, yes, we were all okay, we were about to take off, there's nothing in our way, rolled it out onto the runway and roared down the runway ready to take off. And the tower came on and said, MLA, is the call letters of the aircraft. You're going down the runway the wrong way. Oh my goodness me. We had to screech to a halt and take off the right way. She still married me. Well, that's my flying experience. I suppose I should fly off now. Till the next story, the next tall tale. Tiddlip.
Okay, and welcome back. So here we have Stuart. Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry I'm off camera just for the moment. That'll be fixed at any second now.
Right.
So recently you had an incident down at Barclays with some idiot protesters.
No, I was going to.
Do you want to explain this?
Well, I will. It was quite amazing. I've been having an issue with my Barclays card because they claimed that I had fallen short in the previous month's payment, and I couldn't do it in Lewis, where I live, because there's no Barclays Bank. They're all closing down now because, as we all know. So I went up to. They've got a big one in Brighton. And I said, well, I better go and sort this out to my wife. So I went up there. I got to Barclays, and there was a whole group of what I suppose we must call woke. I don't know what it means, but apparently they're a funny old lot. And I went up there, and they were chained to the door. And then they said, well, if you can get in around the corner, but we prefer you to come this way on the basis that we'll let you in if you give up your investment in Barclays or you have an account with Barclays, and so forth and so on. And I said, well, what is all your thing about? Well, we don't want Barclays. You know, Barclays are big investors in BP and so on and so forth. And I said, well, look, people get this wrong. I used to write about BP once upon a time. And they actually, when you hear about £8 billion split profit for a very small period of time, not much of that is actually garnered in the UK, because they had a thing called Beyond Petroleum when they had started building wind farms and hydro and all other renewable schemes in the States. I would be surprised indeed if BP activity brings in 1/8 of that £8 billion. Anyway, and you go. Then I was going to give them a whole lecture about how BP. Right. BP, like for example, the county council here invests in BP because they feel that a lot of the BP shares go to pension funds. Well, in actual fact, data shows that, well, the fact that most of their profit is gained abroad. How is the Chancellor here or the Prime Minister going to actually impose a windfall tax on them? Right, so it won't be huge, obviously, because Americans won't allow them to do it. And then fine. So the idea about investing in Barclays is Barclays apparently is seen as a good investment because it invests in pension funds, and that's a very good thing to do. In fact, as a matter of factual fact. Oh, where am I? Let me just find my note here. Data. Right. Data from the pension industry suggests defined benefit schemes, the one form of pension, owes only 1.6% of BP. That means the dividend they get from BP is 1.6% of something like, it's isn't it? 1.6% is hardly an investment at all. One different. What was it? I think the last bit of it was 6 US cents. It's done in US cents, 6 US cents per share. So they're not getting a great bloody investment in that instance, right?
No.
And probably the government won't get anywhere near us. So anyway, after giving my little lecture, I went into BP, right, and then paid the £8 shilling.
Shillings?
I'm getting confused there because I'm back in shillings, you know, because my first.
Do you have Alzheimer's?
No, I do not have Alzheimer's. You well know that, so don't keep branding me with it. Right, now the thing is that I know you stopped my stream of thought now.
So because you said shillings.
Well, the reason I was doing that is I've just been writing about my first job at the Financial Times, where my salary was £2, 10 shillings and 9p a week. That was my first job at the Financial Times. That's about £50 a year, isn't it?
I don't know what that is in today's money.
Well, I was a researcher, and I had to join a print union rather than a journalist union, and just goes to show you what wages were like in those days. But just to get back to BP, one, they're not going to actually get much from the windfall tax, and they're not going to get, and investors are not going to get very much money from investing in BP. So I don't think that they are emitting great amounts of carbon in the UK. So I came out from the Barclays, and I said, right, I've divested my whole amount of interest in Barclays, which is £8.33. Are you happy now? And he said, oh, well, fine. So anyway, I was walking along, and there was a Green councillor talking and so forth and so on, and he was very, very nice. And as I'm actually going to interview a councillor here, I actually started saying to him that you've got a terrible reputation as a council, haven't you? So forth and so on. And I said, well, you know, the place is an absolute pit. People, kids are shooting up all over the place. I said, well, what's going on? He said, well, we actually lost £189 million of money over a few years, but we have kept all the hospitals open, we've kept the schools open, we've kept all other libraries open, and all that kind of thing.
Why is this for? Is this for Brighton?
Yeah.
How many millions?
180.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that doesn't seem to have gone very far. I said, what about these people, crackheads walking up and down and so forth and so on? And he said, well, that's actually a national problem. We've actually tried to actually spend money on that, but it's very, very difficult. But I said, well, what about all these sleepless people? They seem to be an army of them. He said, well, actually, as a matter of fact, we've come out of the top 10 of sleeping people in the town. I said, good, you're even worse than the bloody Lewis bunch of creams. I gave another bloody lecture.
What are the top 10 biggest homeless populations in the UK? I wonder where the biggest. Obviously, the biggest is London.
Is it? I don't. Is it? I was up in London last week.
Let me have a look. No, I was up in London last week as well. Weirdly, what day were you in London?
Well, I was there on Friday the 11th and Saturday, and I went up to Hampstead.
Oh, I was there on Tuesday,
and I went to Paddington. I didn't see many people on the street.
No,
really.
That was really strange.
Paddington, it's a red light district and a very poor district. It's where I grew up, and of all places you would have thought there would be it's quite weird, isn't it?
It is. I was in London as well, and me and my girlfriend were there, and we both visit London. This is the first time we've both visited London in a long time, and we visit Brighton multiple times a week.
Yeah.
We saw more homeless people in Brighton than we did in our day trip to London. It was ridiculous. I mean, mainly because we were going to the touristy areas, probably.
Yeah.
But still, it was very strange.
I tell you something. Do you know another thing I saw in my little empirical research as I walked about that? There didn't seem to be an epidemic of obesity
Where? In London?
in London. I really didn't see a load of fat people, but if you go to Brighton, not Brighton, even Lewis, there's young girls got it and so forth and so on. So it's quite weird, isn't it?
I don't really know. I didn't notice that. I was looking mainly at homeless and the statistics of people who live in London, let's say. Not many English people I noticed.
Sorry?
Not a whole lot of English people I noticed.
Oh, I quite agree. There was a huge amount of various people. Quite amazing. I mean, I had to spend an awful lot of time getting up to Hampstead for a party, and you had to go. I said, I haven't been to 3 years, so my knowledge of the underground map is a bit hazy,
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, you have to go over to the Elizabeth line on the other side of Circle Line goes on one side of Paddington, right? And then the Elizabeth Line goes the other one. So you get on that, then you go to King's Cross, and you get onto the Northern Line to get up to Hampstead. So it's a question of lifts and great long walks. It's like going to an airport where you have to walk about a mile to get to the airplane from the terminal. So it's quite weird. But there weren't many people on the street. Mind you, not that many people in Lewis at the moment, that I can see.
No, there's usually about... there's not many homeless people in Lewis. Where I live, I've never seen a homeless person in my life. But I'm trying to have a look. This doesn't have a clear breakdown. Oh, well, that's really strange. They have a breakdown of all homeless people by ethnic group in the United Kingdom.
Really?
Yeah. Not all homeless people, but as many as they can, obviously. Would you like to see the breakdown? This is odd to me. 62% of homeless people in this country are white British. White, including white ethnic minorities, so that could be Canadians, I guess. 14% were black, 9% were Asian, 4% were mixed, and another 4% were from other ethnic groups. So the majority of homeless people, by 62%, are white people. Now that's really surprising. This is greaterchange.org, and I've heard of this people before.
It's funny, when I was growing up in London, and in Paddington, which was a very, very poor area, and I went to North Paddington School, and when I went to North, it was what was known as a central school, which was a vocational school. The boys learned woodwork and metalwork, and the girls learned typing and so forth.
Yeah.
But it was put together with Kemble, one of the roughest, toughest secondary modernists in London. I'll tell you, two of my classmates ended up in Broadmoor, for example.
Yeah.
And it was a very bad school. And when the Windrush people, the men, were sent over here to run the buses, you know about the Windrush, don't you?
The what bus?
Windrush.
Oh, Windrush, yeah.
Yeah. They came to Paddington. So when I went to North Paddington, there were 3 black kids, and they were sons of a Ghanaian diplomat. By the time I left, so 6 years left, it was about 85% black. And some landlord, Peter Ragman, housed them all. And Peter Ragman's mistress was a friend of my mate, so it was arranged that I would go and see one of the houses in Notting Hill, these lovely squares and these beautiful houses then. And I went in, and there were 13 of them in one room, huddled around a primus and candles, and it stunk to high heaven. It was so awful. But when later on, the race riots started, and as I was leaving school, there were about I think more than 20 ethnic groups, okay? And you know who was bottom of the pile?
Who?
Poor white trash.
Yeah, I've heard that before as well.
Yeah.
And
that's academically speaking, I suppose.
And also, I mean, that's academically, and we just seen here the homeless population, 62% of homeless people are white. That's interesting. I did not expect that. Also, population of homeless people in the United Kingdom, 60% are in London.
Really?
60% of all homeless people are in London.
That's interesting. It might be. Did you hear Sadiq Khan on the other thing that?
Sadiq Khan, did you say?
Sadiq Khan, rented now. 2.6 million people are rented,
right?
And they can't afford to pay the rent.
No, I know.
Because of the inflation and the mortgage, all that and the renting. And they reckon that at least half of those are going to become homeless. And this is the legacy of trust, isn't it? Trust and Kwasi Kwarteng.
How is it the legacy of Liz Truss?
Well, because they brought about this inflation.
Did they?
Yes.
Well, there was no inflation. How long has Rishi Sunak been in office? 20 days?
Yeah.
So Liz Truss only lasted 44 days.
Yeah.
So inflation didn't exist 46 days ago?
Oh, it did. But
right, so there we go. Okay. It's not just...
No, but the point is, the only thing you've got about inflation, right, to curb inflation is interest rates, okay?
Right.
But they actually slaughtered the bloody interest rates because the bloody Bank of England wouldn't do anything about it. And she should have actually forced them to do it. So that's really what happened, because, as you know, the whole financial fiscal system fell apart. And that's why people are not, are finding it very difficult. And they're becoming homeless because they can't pay the rents. I mean, 2.6 million people are renting, and half of them are not going to. So there you go.
Yeah, that's.
Anyway, on another subject, want to talk about something else?
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Your friend, Mr. Trump.
Yes.
Has declared he's going to run.
My dear friend. Yes.
He's going to run. Now he's had various setbacks since the midterms, yeah, so forth and so on.
Yeah, they didn't get the red wave they were predicting.
No.
They still got majority of the Senate. Majority of the House.
By
one or two.
Well, yeah. Well, that means that basically Biden can get his legislation through.
Biden can do that. No, Biden can do that anyway by executive order.
Yeah. Well, yes, maybe not. But the thing is that the real body blow to him came about a few days ago when Murdoch's New York Post disavowed him and humiliated him, called Humpty Dumpty, what's it, so forth.
Really?
That is incredibly popular. You're probably young to
New York Post
Blair.
Look,
he has such influence over the press.
What? Who? Trump?
No, Murdoch.
Oh, right.
Right now,
I was going to say
Blair, when he was wanting to get elected, went on his knees to Murdoch to actually get him to actually back Labour Party. Okay, and Murdoch has got the same influence in the States, and he's now said that in the Post they keep pushing out stuff all the time about him, and that's really going to do him terrific. That assuming there are enough rednecks who can read English, but you don't know. But a lot of people really are fed up with him now, aren't they? Getting fed up with him. It's
not his own supporters, I suppose.
Yeah.
He's still got something like ridiculous, like 60 to 70% of support among Republican Party members.
Really?
Yeah. He's hugely popular within his own party, which makes sense, obviously.
Is it really? I find that really anyway. But I think the general public. I mean, also you see the thing I always was banging on about that. For years, there's a whole lot of young Democrats, educated Democrats who, well, these people who are well educated are usually Democrats, basically. And that was demonstrated.
Just like well-educated people in this country are usually liberal Democrats.
Yeah. I wish there were more of them, actually. I wish there were more of them, because I'm a liberal Democrat.
Oh yeah, no, you are.
But I don't know. It seems that all. But Leslie was watching some programs the other night about I think at QAnon or something like that.
Yeah.
About a second bloody sort of insurgents, and they're all bloody well, arming themselves and bloody well and shooting.
Yeah, maybe that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said it before, but that insurrection that happened wasn't an actual insurrection. That's ridiculous to say that. I mean, what kind of morons go to overthrow the government and no one bring a gun? Come on. It wasn't an insurrection.
Well, I saw them with loads of them with guns.
Not in the capital.
One person.
One out of the tens of thousands.
Well, one's more than enough, Max.
What? Yeah.
You only want one to go in a bloody room and spray it all. Look at these kids that get gunned down. How many times have you heard of stories in America in a Texas schoolroom gunning down children? 19, I remember one of those things. America, as I keep telling you, America, apart from West, Los Angeles, New York, America is a peasant country. It really is. It is. It is. You haven't got anybody in the Midwest with an IQ of about bloody 15, which is not very high. Probably yours, is it?
Yeah. I do have something to say about IQ, but I can't say it because we'll get banned immediately. There's the IQ. No, I can't say it.
It's not used these days.
Huh?
It's not really used these days.
No, it is.
Is it?
Yeah. Still used.
So what's yours?
I've never done a test. But the level for being mentally retarded is 62.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
If you're below 62, that's bad news.
Do you know what the Mensa is? Genius level.
No.
It's about 160, I think. Or is it 154?
160, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. What was mine? 148.
Yeah, not quite there then.
No, not quite a genius.
No, certainly not. Well, should we go to a short breather? We'll go to the garden park just for a minute. Here we go. So, we were just talking. Do you want to quickly explain who the guest is today before she arrives?
Yeah, we are waiting here for Wendy Maples, who is, her day job is learning, I've got it here, creative learning and higher education consultant. She is also a counsellor for the county, a county counsellor. Okay,
What's her surname? Wendy what?
Maples, Maples, and she is also a member of the Green Party. And I have a lot to say about the Green Party. It's not very nice, I have to say.
Well, my mum votes for the Green Party every year, and I'm like, why? They're useless. They don't do anything. They don't do anything, and all their points are absolutely ridiculous.
Look, the thing about the Green Party, right? I'm a very green person. I don't have a car. We eat fresh fruit. I only take showers rather than waste bath water. We're green in many respects, but I can't vote for them because of their leadership. Now, there was a story in the New Statesman said that the Greens had an opportunity to be the main party of opposition in this country. But that didn't happen and won't happen because of their leadership policy. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we are more or less a two-party democracy, okay? But we vote on an basically an American sort of a system, which is that people vote for the person rather than the party. Like people vote for Boris rather than the Conservatives, right?
Yeah.
And that means that really you're voting for the Greens have a policy. Caroline Lucas doesn't want the job, right? She just wants to be the PP. And she's probably about one of the most best bloody MPs in Parliament. But you've got two leaders. Everybody hasn't got the foggiest idea who they are. So if it comes to general election, they don't know who they're voting for.
So you do need to have that name recognition.
Well, you do. It's the problem that Keir Starmer's got with his charisma bypass.
He's the most boring individual.
Well, that's the whole point. What I said to you, Angela Rayner is charismatic to a fantastic degree, isn't she? I mean, she's very, very, she goes out and annoys everybody and so forth. But then that person is...
She annoys people for sure, yeah.
Well, no, she's just charismatic. She's got some kind of thing. I know about it. But no, if you go back to the Green Party here, they don't seem to be together at all in terms of management. I mean, I remember back in 2019 when I went to a sustainability meeting. They seemed incompetent, really. A sustainability meeting, and I think it was the leader of the cabinet in climate change, and he said we're going to have carbon emissions to zero by 2030. I asked a question. I said, "How are you going to do that?" And he said, "Well, we're going to have electric charging points and plant trees." Okay, and that was 2019. 2 years on, about 4 or 5 months ago, there was an update, and it turns out there are only 8 electric charging points in Lewes. Terrific, eh?
There's 2 at the train station.
Yeah. 4
at
Tesco's, yeah, 6, and a couple behind the going down the cliff, just behind. In the car park.
Just by the river, yeah.
By the Phoenix
Centre,
yeah. That's all I can find anyway. So there's that, and then then I get into all kinds of that.
You know what I'm surprised by is Tesco's has electric car charging points. Yeah. Surely it should be. Why is Waitrose not doing that? Why? Because usually Waitrose are the people who can afford to go to Waitrose and can afford to have a brand new electric car.
Yeah. I don't know.
It doesn't make sense because the Waitrose where I live doesn't have one either. Not a single one.
I'm going to be talking about Waitrose just in a moment. But
you know where Waitrose is in Hayward Heath? It's just by the train station. I was sitting on the train station. I was looking into Waitrose car park. Yeah. Don't have a single charging point.
Yeah.
And I was counting how many electric cars there were. There were loads.
Yeah.
They're like 15% of the entire cars in the car park.
I think there might be a lot of private electric charging points in Lewes.
People's homes, but that's different. My neighbour, I don't know why on earth he does it. He charges his car from his house plug socket.
Yeah. You can
which
do
is
that, yeah.
incredibly a bad idea because it's so inefficient in cost.
Yeah.
So inefficient. I don't know why the hell it's ridiculous. There's I think there's only 2 in Cookfield where I live.
Right.
But Cookfield's only got 3,000 people in it, so.
Wow.
So I think we'll just quickly go to scenes in Sussex for a breather. Here we go.
Yeah, we'll just stay here from.
Okay, so we're back just for a moment. What we're going to go to do is go to a longer clip whilst we get settled down and introduce Stuart's guest. So this is Tall Tales by Keith Haynes that we'll play for a short while whilst we get sorted out. Thank you very much. Here we go.
Great.
When I set off for Canada, it was a long way to go. It goes on 5,000 to 6,000 miles, all on my own, and a real adventure. And the first year was pretty good. I spent the 2 semesters as required at the university, and then I got a job for the summer. And I went out into the Rocky Mountains between 2 small communities, at least in those days they were small communities, called Revelstoke and Golden. Wild, it was wild. And my job was to help build the Trans-Canada Highway between those 2 points, because there was no road there. The only way in was by rail, a train that had been built many, many years, almost a century before. Well, not the train itself, but the tracks. And I remember on that first journey, getting off the train at a place called Stony Creek. I thought I was at the ends of the earth. It was raining. There was mud and streams flowing down the mountainside. There was nobody there. And there I stood beside the track, watching my safe train, which only came once a week, disappear into the mountainside. You've no idea how you feel in that first few days. But it was very fortuitous, because I learned a number of things in that space of 2 or 3 months that I worked in the Rocky Mountains. I still got an English haircut. On the odd occasion, I wore my school blazer with the mitre on. It's English. I was English in a Canadian setting. And boy, didn't they know it. And I would go into the bunkhouse, and on one occasion, I reached for the gravy jug, and because the chap had a very heavy accent who was sitting opposite to me and said, "That's not gravy," I didn't understand. So I smiled at him and poured the gravy all over this wonderful meal, to find out that it was chocolate sauce. Chocolate sauce sitting on the table, when in fact you've got potatoes and meat in front of you. Oh, that was a learning curve. And the same chap said a little later, he said to one of his companions, "You sure can tell that young fellow is English, can't you?" And I thought, "Well, yeah, I suppose you can." And he said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because he eats his pie with a spoon." Canadians always eat with a fork. What a giveaway. Never mind the blazer, never mind the haircut. But it was that summer that my actual athletic prowess really came out. Because I broke the half-mile record and the high jump record within minutes of each other. And I also, not sure it was a record, but did pretty well in the weightlifting department. That was a few days later. But first of all, it's the half-mile record. When you go to work in these camps, there's not much to do. You work, you sleep, you eat, and after a month or two, you get out and you pick up your check. Very nice it is too. But on a Sunday, no television, no limited books, no newspapers. They would probably come midweek. So you just hung around, and it was very boring. Understanding that and needing work done, the camp bosses would say, "Would you like to earn some more money?" As a university student, wow, would I like to earn some more money? And you got time and a half for working on a Sunday. It's rather nice. So this particular Sunday, I was deputed to go up the mountainside and to start digging little potholes to see whether we could hit gravel, stones that they could use to lay.
Good morning. This is Stuart Dolby for Mirador Television, talking to you from the White Hart Hotel. My guest this morning in the interview with Stuart Dolby is Wendy Maples. Now,
Hello.
Wendy, according to the data, you are from America originally.
I grew up in the States, yeah.
And you are, for your day job, you are the creative learning and higher education consultant.
Yes, that's about right.
And in your spare time, or what time is left, you are a councillor for the county, yes?
And for the town.
Oh,
Yes.
the town council as well.
Mhm.
So you've got to wear two hats.
I do.
Is there any reason for that? Or?
So I became a town councillor first,
Yeah.
and then I was. It's a little bit of a funny story. So I was put in as a Green candidate for the county,
Yeah.
but we believed that Ruth O'Keefe would be running again.
Yeah.
And as you know, Ruth
She
had a
didn't, yeah.
hugely popular base.
Yeah.
And there was very little expectation that I would do anything more than put a bit of a dent in that,
Yeah.
and serve to remind Ruth that we would really like to go forward with a more green agenda. And in the end, Ruth decided not to run, so I became the rather unexpected frontrunner,
Yeah.
and was very pleased to have been elected.
Oh, great! That's wonderful.
But it was happenstance.
Well, yeah. Well, we met in the Lewis Arms one evening,
We did.
which is a talking shop, and I'm always telling stories, and I said, would you like to come and talk to us? We are going to talk about a lot of green issues, but other issues.
Mhm.
But first, I want to talk about a personal interest, and I did mention this to you that my dear wife had a very bad fall in town.
Yeah.
If you come out of Waitrose, turn left and then turn left again, there's a short thing there, and the flagstone.
Yes.
And she tripped over, and she's still, that's about a month away, and she's still getting repercussions of it.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to know, in my journalistic way, who is accountable for this. Is it the town council? Is it the district council? Or is it the county council? So I actually, I don't want to actually annoy you by telling you I'm a member of the Liberal Democrat Party, but anyway, I contacted my friend who's actually also a town councillor, Guy.
Yeah, that's his patch.
Guy, and I said, well, what do you think? And he said, well, I'll do some research for you. And he said, yes, it's the county council, right?
Which is what I would have assumed as well.
Yeah. And then he did further research, and it turns out that the Waitrose was responsible for, not the county council, but Waitrose was responsible for the frontage.
Yes.
Of there, but not for that little thing there, which was a ransom strip. And I told you what a ransom strip is.
No, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and what a ransom strip is, Max, is that if Tesco's wants to build a supermarket on the wreck, then the developer must build a road to it. Okay, so that is the ransom strip. Like in Shepherd's Bush, there's a huge supermarket there, and in order to get it done, they had to put a new station on the tube. Are you with me? So there's a cost involved. So anyway, that was what's what. Now, and then with Guy's further research, he found that land strip was a part of the land owned by a developer. And I've told you who it is, but we must mention this separately. Mr. Hooper Street. So I said,
along with the NCP car park.
Yeah. Is that as well? They owns that as well.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I don't have a definitive on that, but when we've been looking at the whole of the SD56, SD57 patch, that NCP car park really ought to be part of that. And it's been very difficult getting a dialogue going with the person who owns that.
Yeah. So I said, well, yeah, first of all, I said to my wife, I love it, but I don't want to don't think we ought to take on Waitrose. It's still more, we can't going to take on Who's Tracker. He's the only person in the bloody country who's ever got off with 2 murder raps. Anyway, Guy actually mentioned if you want to have a chat with him, we probably will do, won't you?
Sure.
Yeah.
He knows my number, and I see him regularly at meetings.
But the whole thing about this, Wendy, is that there's pavements all over the flipping place.
Yeah.
And they're bloody death traps for us old people. And
Absolutely.
So forth,
Are you a member of the Lewis Area Access Group?
I don't think I am, no.
So Lewis Area Access Group is both a support group as well as an organization that campaigns to improve things like pavements in order to support people who have mobility difficulties across the Lewis area.
Yeah.
So I meet with them regularly, and they have identified many areas throughout the whole of Lewis that are, as you say, I mean, death traps for people who've got any kind of mobility issue. And that might be a visual issue, that might be a using a wheelchair as their main mobility, and it could be being a pedestrian and just finding that there are lots of trip hazards. But it is really difficult getting East Sussex County Council to recognise that they have to prioritise the most vulnerable people, so people with mobility difficulties as well as other issues, and then pedestrians, and then cyclists, and and then quite a ways down the line, we should be prioritizing the car, and that just isn't how highways works. And that is, despite there being some really great people at the county council who are really keen to be doing the right thing, but at the moment there isn't a formula to make that happen.
Well, we'll just have to sort of wait and see. But let's get over to the other thing about, I had an extraordinary day on Monday, really extraordinary. And I'd like to talk to that. And first of all, it's about the county council. And secondly, it's about the Green Party. Okay.
Could I just, before we move on, the other organisation that's really important to know about is Lewis Living Streets. So Lewis Living Streets has come up with all kinds of plans that are well researched, that are costed in order to make Lewis a much healthier place to live in, and that includes focusing on pedestrianisation in the high street. So they're another organisation that's doing really good work, and we do well to listen to them. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's all. Anyway, so on Saturday, I've been having trouble with my Barclay card people. I'm trying to get rid of all my Barclay cards because they're horrible, and put it into my Lloyd's account. But of course, there's no. But I got a message from Barclay card saying, "Oh, you've gone short on one of your payments," and so forth and so on. You have to pay us some money. And I said, "Well, all right, I'll go over to Brighton and do it." I went up to Barclays and Morris, and there was a lot of people chained together and chained to the Barclays Bank. And then they actually said, "What can I go in?" He said, "Oh, you can go in if you divest yourself of your Barclay account or your so forth and so on." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Why is that?" I said, "Why are you protesting?" He said, "Well, because Barclays invests in BP." I said, "Right, by so do you, apparently."
Oh, at county council.
No.
Well, it's the pensions. So we can come on to that later.
I'll come to that. Yeah. So anyway, I said, "Well, look, all right, yeah." When I started telling them, because I know about BP and I know a great deal about pensions. I was a member committee of the Financial Times pension scheme, okay, and this is part of Bank of Mum and Dad. When my 2 daughters, I said to them one day, I said, "You know what Einstein said?" They said, "No." I said, "He said compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world." They said, "Dad, what are you talking about?" I said, "Right, what we're going to do is that I'm going to give you both £100 each, now you're in your 20s, to start a pension, right? And if what we do now, if you leave it to, you've got to invest in now in your 20s. If you leave it to your 30s, you'll have to pay £250 compound interest. If you went to your 40s, you would never meet the target of 60,000 pension. And they've still got these pensions to this day. And I think that's one of the most important things I could have done for my children. Not many people know that, as Michael Caine used to say. But going back to what I said, all right, I will actually divest, and if you let me in, I promise. Right? So I came out and I said, right, are you happy now? I've divested my £8.33. And then I started talking. I said, look, when you talk about BP, there's a lot of misunderstanding. When they say it's £8 billion profit, okay, in a certain period, BP's exposure or activities in London is very, very low. In England, it's very, very low now. Most of that, they had a program called Beyond Petroleum, and they've got loads of wind farms and
Well, not loads. They have a very tiny percentage of their investment is in wind farms.
Yeah,
I mean, it's minuscule.
Yeah, well, hang on a sec, but there's
But
there's
okay,
quite a lot.
just let's be
No,
clear.
yeah. So right, yeah, but the amount. Right, how are they going to? How is the government going to actually impose a windfall tax on American activities? America won't stick up for that, will they?
Well,
Point one.
BP is actually offered to pay a windfall tax.
Yeah.
So BP is willing to pay a windfall tax.
Yeah.
This government
But it won't
has
be
not
much.
followed that up.
It won't be much. It won't be much.
It-
No,
it's
another
still-
thing. Right. Okay. No.
Well,
that's
hang
right.
on,
Yeah.
hang on. You're
Yeah.
saying it won't be much. What figures have you got?
Huh?
Because it's actually a significant amount. It's these figures, if we look at what a windfall tax could be, and of course there's all kinds of variations in what that windfall tax could be and where that money where that money goes. The difficulty is that we've got a government that is not interested in pursuing that, regardless of whether it's a huge amount, a medium amount, or a little amount. And at the moment, we're being told that we're going to go into another period of deep austerity.
Yeah.
Now, that austerity, for many people, has never, ever stopped.
Yeah.
Since 2008, we have had perpetual austerity. We have had perpetual cuts.
Yeah.
So for people who are now hearing that there is going to be more austerity and that the government is not even interested in pursuing a windfall
But there has
tax,
also been decades
that's a
of,
real
but there's also
contradiction.
been decades of reckless consumerism as well.
Sure.
So, yeah, okay. But
We're on the same page on that.
Right, yeah. Now, the other thing is that, you actually do invest in BP.
At East Sussex County Council's pension does invest in BP.
Now, this is most interesting, you see. Now, the actual data shows that basically, now the BP dividend was 6 cents most recently, a 10% increase. The share price has gone up by 37%. Okay. Right. Now, data has shown that the pension industry suggests defined benefits. That's a certain kind of pension.
Sure.
I've got pensions, but they're final salary ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Benefits. So the pension things owns 1.6% of BP. 1.6%.
Yes.
That means the dividend you get from it is 1.6%. Now the actual dividend is 6 cents, right? So you get 1.6% of that.
I'll take your word for it.
That's not a lot of money, is it?
It's partly about the principle, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's not just about the amount of money. And the people to talk to about this is really Divest East Sussex, because they've been running a campaign for 10 years where where people who have pensions in the East Sussex County Council Pension Fund, which includes people in Brighton and Hove as well as in East Sussex, they've been campaigning for 10 years to divest. And that's partly because there really shouldn't be a public body like East Sussex County Council investing in fossil fuels. And on a kind of on principle basis, that's something that they would like to stop happening in their name, which I understand completely. But you're right, it is a very small percentage of the overall pension scheme.
Is it? I don't like to say this because I'm not particularly a snob, but is it because there was an awful lot of conservative people who've got a lot of money in within your remit, basically, And they're perfectly happy to have it, and it's all the wokey people who are actually protesting against you lot and so forth and so on.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. I think that there are probably conservatives who would be quite happy to see us divest as well. But yes, I mean, I'm not going to speak for them. I don't know.
Well, if they're actually avid investors, they're probably going to. Oh, blimey! If I got that in my eye, so I'm going to get rid of that one. But let's go to the broader person. When I was actually talking to you, I'm a very green person. Okay. I used to have a very, after my journalistic career, when I worked for the Financial Times, as I told you, and I was their first war correspondent, and I stayed on after, in Vietnam and all that kind of thing. I had to create the job. It's really quite funny because my memoir say Life of Flukes. I got a job. I didn't realise I had ADHD then.
Oh, okay.
So my life has been a life of flukes. I failed 11 plus, but I got into university because I keep talking. And then when I finished university, I didn't have a very good degree, and I had a labouring job in London.
Yeah.
And I picked up a copy of the Daily Telegraph, which I never ever read, and there was an advert in it which I never read either, and it said, researcher wanted for Financial Times Library, must be a graduate, editorial prospects. So again, the old ADHD thing, I got the job. I was just telling Max, my salary was £2, 10 shillings and 9 a week.
Riches.
Because I had to join. I couldn't join the remember the war between the printers and the editorial.
Absolutely.
I had to be a printer swing, and that's what printers got in this. Anyway, I got this job, and I did very well in the companies because I'm very literate. So actually, I was sent off to Hong Kong to write about Freddie Fisher, another fluke. So Freddie Fisher was a German guy, and he had a German accent anyway, and he said, "Stuart, you're doing very well. I want you to go to Hong Kong and write about the stock exchange there. There you write about it. Write about the stock exchange there." And I said, "Oh, blimey, yeah." And so he phoned me up, and I said, "Well, actually, Freddie, I think I'm going off to be a war correspondent in Vietnam." And he went mad. "No, we do not want a war correspondent. They're not interested in small wars." And anyway, Mark Franklin, who worked for the Observer, he said, "I've had enough. Why don't you write for us?" So I wrote for them. When they saw my byline, they said, "Can you write for us as well?" Bingo, I was a war correspondent. But it was really fun. But then...
So did you spend a lot of time in Vietnam then?
5 years, yeah.
Gosh.
Okay. The last 5 years.
Right.
And some of us, the American journalists were, 1975, the final, there was a bloodbath in Da Nang because North Vietnamese came down. And but the spies in Saigon said, "Don't need a bloodbath here. We've won. It's over." So when we got down there, we thought there was no bloodbath. The American journalists had to leave, but British journalists said we could stay. There was 9 of us, and we spent 3 weeks. Now, Sandy Gore, you remember Sandy Gore, Newcastle here.
No.
ITN Newcastle.
Okay, I wasn't here at that point.
Yeah, and he was given the keys to the British club when the British embassy had left. And for 3 weeks, we spent 3 weeks playing badminton and swimming in the pool.
Gosh.
And I got fed up, and I said, "Well, Sandy, I'm getting fed up with this. I think I'm going to make you chairman of the Escape Committee." And he said, "What a good idea, wonderful idea. I'll go speak to Colonel Trang." He was our mine dad. He said, "I'll speak to Colonel Trang." He says, "Colonel Trang, it's getting a honest joke. You must get us out of here." So he was sent up to Laos. And we were there. And I was, as I said to you, I was one of the first undergraduates at Sussex University. And my peers went to America to make their fortunes. And one of them got a job at the Time magazine. There was a story about us in Time magazine. And there was a cable waiting for me in Laos saying, right, is it true you got pissed and fell asleep? I said, that bit's true. And the Viet Cong were knocking on your bedroom door the next morning. And I said, that's not true, but what a wonderful story. I think we'll go with that one. Anyway, let's get back to the whole thing. Now, that green things, okay. I after I did this oil investment in small oil companies. My daughter.
Anyway, the main point is that you divested from Barclays.
Yeah.
Well,
well, no. But I also, after I was involved in, when I may have got money instantly, I decided to do Green Barrel. My website to do Green Barrel. My website.
Okay.
Now, my Green Barrel is about investment in energy, renewable energy companies, and I have found over the years that the lack of investment has been so poor, we're not going to meet the energy mix soon. Dieter Helm, for example, the professor of energy at Oxford, says it's going to be a 10-year gas bridge. Yeah, and at least. But it's all very well to start this huge investment now, but it wasn't. So do you know what used to happen, right? Well, after the Copenhagen summit in 2011, there wasn't that interest in climate change. The polls said only 25% of the people, right? And people weren't that worried about what's it. So when I opened Green Barrel, when I started Green Barrel, somebody would come along with a good idea, say marine current turbines, and they would we had 50 companies on our website, and they would go to the stock exchange and get a lot of money to prove up, but they spent it all on proving up the product and getting over regulatory hurdles. And they went, 16 of them went bust. So the investment just wasn't there. It just didn't happen. And that's the situation we've got today.
I'm afraid so.
But just going back to being green, that's one aspect of my green, but I also haven't got a car and so forth and so on and so forth. And I was actually, when I talked to you the other day, I told you about I am green, but I couldn't vote for you because of your lack of leadership. You know, and the lack of managerial availability. And I said about the leadership. I told you this. I've got a story in the New Statesman which said the Green Party has missed this wonderful opportunity to be the major party of opposition.
When was that?
It was about 6 or 7 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
at the same time that Labour was missing its opportunity to be the opposition, and so were the Lib Dems. No,
but this is the whole point, you see. The whole thing about is the leadership thing, right?
Okay.
Right.
But you're going to, hang on, I'm just going to say, so you're going to put this down to us having co-leaders. But Labour also missed its chance, single leader. Yeah. Lib Dems also missed their chance. Single leader. I mean, I don't know that the Green Party did miss its chance. I think the Green Party is showing real emergence and real leadership.
Okay, well,
all the different local authority councils.
Yes, but the point is, the thing is, we're two actual party, essentially two-party
co-leadership.
Democracy. No, hang on. And what happens is now we vote on an American style where people don't vote for the party, they vote for the person. Okay? Like people vote for Boris, not for the Conservatives. And people, right, now, if it comes to it, you know, they vote for Boris because he's good on television.
Sure.
Right. But Keir Starmer has got a charisma bypass. Okay? So people are not going to vote that. Angela Rayner is very charismatic, so people might vote for her and so on and so forth. Caroline Lucas doesn't seem to want the job. And also, you know, so are people going to vote for two people, one leader that they've never even heard of? Then that's the problem you've got, it seems to me.
Well, and part of that problem is getting, I mean, this is changing. It's changing at a rate of knots. So we do increasingly get national press. But getting national press attention as a smaller party is really difficult.
Mm.
We don't have the funds that other parties do. The Lib Dems have just spent, I don't know how much money, printing a full color leaflet that went into a really nice bit of paper envelope. I don't know if it was recycled or not, that went through every single letterbox.
Yeah.
Now, that is money that the Green Party simply doesn't have at this
Yeah.
point. And we rely on individual donors, and individual donors, they are not going to be making the kinds of investments that you get if you have got donations from oil companies, if you've got donations from big finance companies.
Yeah.
And, and that it's really difficult in the system that we've got. It's difficult to get press. It's difficult to pay for stuff if you are a smaller, poorer party.
Yeah.
But we're getting there. Despite those huge hurdles, we've just had a major win in Wealden. So a seat that has been conservative for forever, just got overturned and won by a Green. We've just got a year and a half ago, I was one of previously 0 Greens on the county council. We got 4.
Yeah.
And that's just through doing the work. That's going out, meeting people, doing what politicians are actually meant to do, which is talk to people, find out what the issues are, and do our best to help them.
Yeah.
In constrained circumstances.
Yeah, but again, I was talking to you about the sort of the sort of incompetence of the local party. But fine, I go to sustainability. I've told you this story, I think. I went to a sustainability thing in 2019, and I think it was the Green Party said we are going to have carbon. Yeah, it was. What's his name? Matthew Bird, who I don't like very much, so keep it to yourself.
So that's Councillor Matthew Bird, who is both a district councillor and a town councillor, and works for the Wildlife Trust, and was previously an officer at outside of the county on sustainability. Okay. Yes, but you disagreed with him.
Well, I don't like him.
Okay.
I think he knows as well. I think he knows as much about climate change that I know about chicken farming in Peru. I mean, which is bugger all. Anyway, so he said, right? What I said, how are you gonna meet zero carbon? He said, oh, we're gonna have electric charging points and plant trees, right? About 2 years on, really, earlier this year. How many charging points have we got in this? 8.
Yeah.
8 public ones. There might be a lot of private ones, but 8 ones.
Yeah. So the district council is going to be rolling out EV charging points in the district council car parks. The difficulty that we've got is that East Sussex County Council, although it says that it's got a rollout for EV in the areas that it controls, it is not going to, at the moment, the plan is to put 0 in Lewis. So there are EV points that have been put in various other places. There is a program to roll them out. District Council is planning to roll them out in its own car parks. But East Sussex County Council, which will have the majority of funds for this, because it has highways, is simply not going to be doing it in Lewis anytime soon, according to the current plans that I've seen. All of that can change. The more pressure we put on, the more we ask for them, the better. The other thing to say, though, is that although EV charging points, yes, it's a good step in the right direction. Electric vehicles this is a temporary, transitory technology. So, and
also you've got to remember that lithium is finite.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, also.
No, I don't need to be absolutely
the density
right.
of lithium means that their distance is not very good. I'll tell you something like, if you like. No, I don't want to break up the regular here, but we've got a holiday home in Shetland, okay? And the guy there had two little turbines for a little industrial estate, and he had what he called a hydrogen pump.
So, wow!
Right. So he used to, when the wind blows a lot in Shetland.
Yeah.
So when it's much like, if Robin Rice explodes 20 20 it's 50% in what's it all the
Okay.
time. And so when it blows a lot, he puts it into cylinders, you see.
Yes. Okay.
Right. Because right, and then he puts them through a fuel cell,
Okay.
right, and they push you through an electrolyzer, gets the hydrogen out, which goes into a hydrogen, right?
Okay.
Yeah, right. So, but the fact
So
about it,
this is really localized green hydrogen.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Now the fact about it, of course, green hydrogen is very green hydrogen is actually very expensive.
At the moment.
Yeah, at the moment,
Yeah.
yeah. But as opposed to blue hydrogen and grey hydrogen. And anyway, so
Although that's getting more expensive.
But the trouble is that hydrogen needs a lot of room.
Mm.
So you would need a cylinders. You need a big sort of carrier behind or a trailer behind the size of the car taking you out of it. And I said to him, "How far will this get me? What I got?" He said, "Oh, get you down to Lerwick, which is the capital. It's 50 miles away." And I said, "Well, how will I get back?" He said, "That's the problem." Because hydrogen was at the egg, the chicken and the egg.
Mm.
There are no fueling stations, no hydrogen cars, no hydrogen cars because there's no hydrogen cars because there's no fueling stations, no fueling stations because there's no hydrogen
Sure.
cars.
And the same is true of EV.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, just coming back to the point about EV charge points. So, yes, we do need to roll them out. We should have been rolling them out, 10, 15 years ago, but for the same reason that you just said about hydrogen, it was something that was really difficult to rationalize. And now we're in a situation where I visited in California last year, and I borrowed a friend's electric car, and I was able to go between 200 and 300 miles on it.
Yeah, that's about right.
Which is absolutely fantastic, and more than most people.
300 miles.
Yeah, it was between 200 and 300, and it wasn't.
But in America, that's the distance is in America.
Of course.
I mean, if you got one here, right?
But it's more than enough to get to the shops and back.
Yeah, but here you could get to Swindon. If you wanted to go to Edinburgh, you might be in real bother,
Yeah,
but it's just they did need a lot of room. And also you've got the problem that people are worried about, explosive and all that kind of thing.
Well, so I
believe in the hydrogen economy. Don't get me wrong.
I think that we need to investigate more. There's actually a hydrogen research project that is being run out of Sussex University. I think it might be Brighton University. Apologies, Sussex and Brighton, if I've got that wrong. And that research facility is just bringing up some really fascinating data about. Do you know who it is? Because I can't remember the name.
I could find out.
It's the hydrogen something or other.
I've been very active in the Alumni Society for years. I've been pushing money into all of them. And I did some mentoring about renewable energy.
Yeah.
And I should be doing some more this year. They want me to do it.
Brilliant.
Well, because apart from anything else, you see, if someone's doing something about, I've got huge contacts in the city of London because I was doing the oil, and now I know all the hydrogen companies, all the renewable energy companies. So what we're going to do is say if somebody in the media wants to be a trainee, like he was a trainee, you can come here,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Bring back the apprentice system.
Yeah. Well, that's things we've everybody been talking for years, haven't they? We were just talking about that earlier on, actually. But people are saying, actually, I went to university, and okay, a degree is not a passport to a good job these days.
No.
Okay, and I was lucky because I talk a lot, but there was something very important in my life about going a working class boy, getting into university, and you met the people, and that's when I grew up. That's when I became. I was not very self-confident because my father abandoned me before I was even born, and I was from a very poor working class family, and to actually get into that and to meet all these people. I mean, when I went for my interview, I felt like little Annie with a window up against it. What's it? there's all these middle class, even middle class universities, all these
Absolutely.
people, they were all going to parties and joining clubs and all so forth and so on. Oh God, why can't I go to the party?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people do arrive with, different cultural capital
Yeah.
when they come to university, and I like to think that a lot of that has changed.
Yeah.
But
I tell you,
I mean, my background is in widening participation.
Yeah,
So I worked for the Open University for 15 years. I've worked for other universities where the focus was on getting young people who wouldn't have in the past had the opportunity to go to university to go to university,
Well,
or to maybe not go to university.
Yeah.
So
well,
making it a
it's
choice.
the cost, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
You see, I mean, my generation, the baby boomers,
Mhm.
I reckon it's probably the best era that it's ever been and ever will be. But free education,
Yeah.
to save the money for a mortgage, a triple our pensions. Young people today, as we were talking earlier, it's very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You'll be kidding. But going to that university sort of gave me sort of self-confidence that I'd never had. And that was very,
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, for a lot of people, going to university kind of galvanizes them and helps them, as you say, I mean, with their identity and deciding what they want to do.
I make a regular donation to the Alumni Society, which is the Sussex Fund, which is for young people, single parents, allow them to go on and so forth and so on.
Yeah. I didn't come from a particularly poor background, although my father. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But I was the first person in my family to go to university, and I found it a very alien environment and overwhelming. But I'm eternally grateful to the universities that I went to for
the thing about
making my life a different kind of life than it might have been.
The Sussex University was one of the new universities, 7 university. It was new. It was absolutely
really exciting.
Butler, under the Butler, actually, John Fulton, the first Vice Chancellor, was told he must take in working class people. What other people don't know was that it was 53% women. Not many people know that, as Michael Caine said. But it was just very good to be alive. It was in the 60s. It was just extraordinary because the university, together with Brighton, was an epicenter of the swinging 60s. And there was this culture and revolution in music, the Beatles, and so on, and social change.
Yeah.
Fine, there was the end of hanging. There was not gay rights, but it was made legal, wasn't it? And also, and there was easier divorces and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And everything seemed possible. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So going back to EVs and hydrogen. So I take your point about that, but the other thing is that I do worry that we spend so much time worrying about cars, and for me, what really matters is making communities livable, making communities habitable. And you're a walker, I'm a walker. And in fact, I'm sitting here in my stocking feet because my feet got absolutely soaked on the way here, and I'm hoping my shoes dry out before I go on to my next thing today.
Yeah.
But, so why aren't we talking about making things great for pedestrians? Why aren't we talking about making things great for cyclists? And one of the, the shocking things about East Sussex County Council highways is that there was an opportunity over 10 years ago to build the C90 running through Lewis. So we've got connections on either side. They're not as great as they could be, but they're there. But we do not have a decent cycle route.
Well, I've got a certain different slant on that.
Sure.
A lot of cyclists don't obey the law. They go riding on pavement, okay, and they go crossing zebra crossing. Now, Kate Wood, you must know.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. New road where we live, right? The signage is very poor.
Okay.
Okay. So cars come down at great speed, not realising it's a what's it thing. Turn around and go right back up again.
Are we talking about Castle Ditch Lane?
No, we're talking about New Road.
Oh, sorry. Yes, New Road.
So they come down right now. So we said, look, there's going to be something. We've got to do something about this signage, and because the cars were coming down, going back, and the cyclists were going right down, weaving in and out, and all the rest of it. Now, New Road is full of young families and old people.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so Kate tried to take it up, and of course it ended up with the council. The county
And in
council.
fact, I've also tried to deal with this. So I can tell you what I've tried to do at the county council.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a shame that Kate didn't coordinate with me on that, because it's always better to have two rather than one. But so I have talked to different people about getting better signage on New Road.
You see, because
the problem is that, yes, if you're coming from
you come out from
west,
town, if you're
heading east, there is a sign.
Yeah, but
that's
it's right
very
up
clear.
there.
Yeah.
You don't see it.
And it was behind scaffolding for much of the year.
And also
year.
in the summer, the tree hides it as well. That one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then there's no signage coming the other direction.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is on the list to improve the signage there. The other thing that's a big issue, of course, is that you've now got all of the logs vehicles turning around there. But, it's the kind of swings and roundabouts. It is better than them hopping the pavement outside the Shelleys. And that's a whole other conversation, of course. So doing the turnaround at the top of New Road, where you've got a car park on one side and predominantly log-zoned buildings on the other, is a bit better. But you're quite right. New Road is a problem in that regard. But New Road also suffers from potholes, and part of the reason why you've got
getting to
cyclists.
if you come along the pavement, just and there's holes all over the flipping place.
Absolutely.
Leslie and I
they're
are just
really terrible.
it's quite daunting.
So funnily enough, I met with Roger the other day. So Roger is he's a guy who works for Highways under one of their contracts. And I happened to see his van at the top of New Road. So being nosy, I said, hello, I'm your county councillor. What's up? What are you doing? And Roger was really informative about, how things get prioritized and what he would like to be doing. As somebody who has been working on highways for the whole of his life and seeing things done properly. And we stood there and we looked at this enormous pothole at the edge of the pavement, veering onto the road. But even though it was big, it would probably not meet highways criteria for filling because it's not in the road ruts that cars go down. It is in a rut that cyclists might hit. It isn't a rut that would be a trip hazard for a pedestrian crossing. So if we can just get more momentum behind the idea that we've got to look after pedestrians and cyclists, then you reduce the weaving that cyclists do going down a rutted road, and you stop the risk of people tripping over when they come off wobbly pavements onto roads that are not going to get fixed because they're not through
But also
roads.
Another point,
And they're
another thing,
not in the car traffic.
Another thing is, I've got a feeling, people that none of them have got bells anymore. There was a law, I think, said that you've got to have a bell. And people, every single I go past, I shout at them, "Where's your bell?" I mean, people just don't have bells on it. It's really, really very, very manifest. It really is. I mean, people should have a bell.
So there's an organization in Lewis called Cycle Lewis, which I'm sure you're aware of. And Cycle Lewis is really good at being responsive as well as campaigning for cyclist rights, about being responsible cyclists.
Well, John May, you know John May.
Yeah, of course.
Everybody knows John May.
Yeah. He's one of my heroes.
Is he?
He won't mind my saying, I'm sure. So I did my PhD on environmental politics, and I was interested in how radical environmental groups went about representing themselves in the media. And John May pretty much, well, not pretty much, John May did write the book on Greenpeace. And of course was an environmental journalist.
Friends.
Of course.
He's a great friend
absolutely.
of mine. In fact, I shouldn't say this, but I support him. in many ways.
Mm.
I see. I get the
And
financial.
he supports his
I get
community.
I get the
He's-
Financial Times for nothing, but I buy it, so I give it to him.
Right.
He can't live without it now. He says, "No, John is a great friend of mine. He's been a great friend of mine." The trouble with John is he won't get out of this counterculture thing in the '60s. He's still living in the '60s. He won't get out of it.
Did you go along to the Love Our Ooze event? Huge event
Which
down
one?
at the Linklater.
I didn't
month
go.
and a
Well,
half
the
ago.
poetry and stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
John organised that.
yeah.
It was
Look,
fantastic.
John is always doing something.
Mm.
He's always, he's never stops. There's all, and he's written 16 books as well. And he does all the music and all. But he's me and friends of his call him the Renaissance man.
Yes.
And he did get the Rodin statue. He's just very, very accomplished. And I keep saying to him, "Why are you been that bloody skint, John?" I don't know. Anyway, but that's a different story. But yeah, he is a very, very interesting person.
Mm.
I've known him for years. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, he lives opposite me.
Yeah.
He comes to us on Boxing Day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, his son Louis lives here now. Oh,
So
yeah.
going back to pedestrians,
Yeah.
so making communities that are the sort of catchphrase at the moment is 15-minute communities.
Yeah.
So communities where you can walk or cycle to your essential services, having housing that's permeable. So one of the problems that's happened down at Davies Lane and the developments that have happened just off of Malling Hill is that you have to go out the front onto the main road and then into town because there is no permeability in those buildings, in the site between the buildings. So you can't walk and cycle out the back door for some of them. That's not true of all of them, but for some of them.
If you go to Beijing, I don't know if you've ever been to Beijing.
I absolutely have not.
The cycles are cut off.
Mm.
There's a big fence
Mm.
for that in the cars. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, blimey.
Mm.
I mean, that's the trouble, is that a lot of the roads are not broad enough for that, are they?
No, well, the pavements are the pavements are too narrow, and then the roads are arguably too narrow to widen the pavements.
But people shouldn't. I mean, I saw kids the other day weaving around the bloody pavement, around a pram, for God's sake. It's not funny.
Mm.
And when they come whistling down
New Road, I know. It is, yeah. But as we say, there.
And do you remember what was
it?
it? Was it last year that kid in Kent who was doing this? What's it? And he killed somebody at a funeral.
No, I didn't know.
It was about.
That.
It might have been 2. I think it was the over.
But he was doing wheelies.
Wheelies up there like that,
Mm.
and he was drunk apparently, and he killed someone.
Oh, that's awful.
I mean, and I sort of said something, but
if we look at the stats on that, of course, the number of people who are killed by cars, the number of people who are killed in cars. I mean, it is absolutely disproportionate to any kind of injuries that happen.
That's diminished a lot.
It has diminished, but I don't know if you saw the Panorama program last week about cars and cyclists, and it was, I think it was pretty even-handed actually. So looking at the kinds of injuries that cyclists get, the number of cyclists who are killed by drivers driving cars, those we have to look at the proportion of issues here. And I agree with you. There's lots of whataboutism. What about the kid who did this, and what about the other person who did that? Let's look at the whole picture and let's try and solve for the real problems. So the real problems are that we in Lewis have not got enough space, and we haven't got decent space for pedestrians. What we don't have is a decent cycle route through Lewis to make it safer for pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay. Well, look, he's telling us, but one last thing. We were talking about, Max and I were talking about homelessness on the street. In Brighton, it's a real problem here. And well, here, I don't think it's an enormous number of people on the street, is it? I think.
So we know that Open Door, I'm sure you're aware of Open Door.
Yeah.
So Open Door provides safe space for homeless people.
Yeah.
And they have seen, I'm not as up to date on this as I probably should be. They were seeing an increase in the number of homeless people in Lewis. The district council, of course, it's district, it's not county, but district council does have a team that goes out and meets with homeless people. I know that there have been just shockingly an increase in harassment of homeless people in Lewis. So we don't have anything like the numbers of homeless people.
No, Brighton's got,
yeah. But there are people who are living on the streets in Lewis, or living in tents in the periphery of Lewis.
Whereabouts?
So there was a person who was living down behind Convent Field. I mean, because there has been harassment, I really don't want to go into that because I think that, you know, I'm sure the viewers of Mirador television would be as horrified as I am. But it's I think for people's own safety, it's better that they have little pockets where they currently feel safe, where there is contact with the local authority, and where they know that there's somewhere that they can
Somebody
go
told me, I don't know if it's true
support.
or not, I think it was the one that lived there, that about four or five people who are on the streets have actually got places in Lamport. Someone told me that. I don't know whether it's true or not. But also, it's very interesting is because when I was mentoring at Sussex University, there was a lady there who was doing about homelessness. And she said, it's not the availability of homes so much, it's the fact that mental health, they're not able to run a home. People are running. It's not the fact that, you know, there's not enough homes.
It's both, though, isn't it? Yes. Yes. So it is both.
Yeah.
So yes, there are people. I mean, and you can imagine if you were living on the street, that your mental health would suffer fairly quickly. In addition to those people who have ended up homeless because of a pre-existing mental health condition.
Well, I give it to most of them. If they've got a pint of beer there, then I'm not going to give it, you know, because it's not helping them, is it? You know, buying a pint of beer, but I suppose, you know.
On the other hand, you know, any port in a storm. Any port in a storm.
I certainly give it to buskers down the bottom there. I really like that.
Oh, some of them are fantastic. I don't know if you saw there was a 9 or 10-year-old kid.
Oh, I know that band.
Doing piano.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
and one of the other ones got the washboard.
Oh no, this was a solo act. Absolutely amazing.
And it's actually legal in Lewis, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently,
Yeah. Interesting. I think, are we coming up for time now?
I think we are.
Yeah, 10:59.
Okay. Well,
so
thanks ever so much for the invitation.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
It's been quite more wide-ranging than I expected.
Yeah. Well, I do like to rattle on, you know.
It was really fun. Thank you very much.
I do tell stories, as you know. I'll tell you
Good
one.
stories.
I'll tell you one.
Go on then.
Right. One night I was sitting in the castle, right, and in comes a guy from pianist from Glyndebourne, and then the soprano from Glyndebourne. So I'm regaling with my stories about Vietnam and all the rest of it. And the next day I got an email from the pianist. He said, "Would you like 2 tickets for the marriage of Figaro? We just rehearsed for the marriage of Figaro."
Oh, nice.
I said, I went back to my wife. I said, they're gold dust. I said, you look, my storytelling does pay dividends. And Leslie said, yes, but not when people have heard them 700 times.
But you went.
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic.
Oh, I am a storyteller. You are one, Stuart.
Do you want to round off the show before we go?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, okay. What shall I round it off? What shall I say? Well, thank you very much for coming here today, and it's been most interesting.
It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And see you at one of the local hostelries.
I'm sure we will. Yeah.
Soon.
Well, you know, I'm an absolute devotee of the diddly music. You know.
the diddly music at the Lewis Arms on a Tuesday night.
Thursday night. But the whole thing about it is that you can't ever gauge the demographic of a pub. 1 week you go in there and there are 10 musicians, the next day you say, yes, all right. Look, he's the owner, you see.
Hello.
He's the owner with my
Hello.
permission.
I'm sorry, I can't stop him talking sometimes. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So anybody who's watching, I'm on the case.
All right. Well,
very nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
all right. Well, thank you very much. We'll be back on live tomorrow, 8:30, and then at 9:30, Liza Page will join me. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.